Welcome to CEO's Library, the 1% bookshelf, your gateway to the most impactful business books shaping industries and driving innovation. I'm your host, Maxwell Thornton, and today we're diving into a book that has revolutionized the way we think about leadership in both the military and business worlds, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Imagine being responsible for every decision, every success, and every failure in your life and business. It's a daunting thought, isn't it? But that's exactly the core principle of extreme ownership. This concept, developed in the crucible of combat, has profound implications for leaders in all walks of life. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin are former Navy SEAL officers who served in the most violent battlefields of Iraq. They led SEAL teams in the Battle of Ramadi, one of the toughest urban combat environments in modern history. After their military service, they founded Echelon Front, a leadership consulting company that helps businesses implement the leadership principles they learned on the battlefield. Their experiences in combat provide a unique perspective on leadership. After all, if these principles work when lives are on the line, imagine how powerful they can be in the business world, where the stakes, while high, are rarely life-threatening. Now, let's dive into the first key lesson from the book, Extreme Ownership. To understand this concept, picture yourself in Jocko Willink's shoes during a harrowing incident in Iraq. It's 2006, and Jocko is the commander of SEAL Team 3, Task Unit Bruiser. They're operating in Ramadi, a hotbed of insurgent activity. One night, Jocko's team is involved in a complex operation with Iraqi allies. Suddenly, chaos erupts. Gunfire blazes through the night. When the dust settles, they realize the unthinkable has happened. A blue-on-blue incident or friendly fire. In the military, this is considered the ultimate failure. Lives were at risk, and it happened under Jocko's command. The natural human instinct would be to find someone to blame, to point fingers at the confusion of battle or the fog of war. But that's not what Jocko did. Instead, he did something remarkable. In front of his entire team and his superiors, Jocko stood up and said, "There is only one person to blame for this, me. I am the commander. I am responsible for the entire operation. As the senior man, I am responsible for every action that takes place on the battlefield. There is no one to blame but me." This is extreme ownership in action. It's about taking total responsibility for everything in your world. No excuses, no deflection, no blame. Now, you might be thinking, that's all well and good in the military, but how does this apply to me and my business? Well, it applies in more ways than you might think. Imagine you're a CEO and your company has just missed its quarterly targets. The easy path would be to blame market conditions, or perhaps underperforming team members. But a leader practicing extreme ownership would say, I am responsible for this outcome. I failed to prepare the team adequately for market challenges. I failed to provide the resources and guidance needed for success. And now, I will take responsibility for fixing it. This mindset is transformative. When you take full responsibility, you empower yourself to find solutions. You're no longer a victim of circumstances, but an active agent in shaping your reality. But extreme ownership isn't just for those at the top. It's a principle that can and should be applied at every level of an organization. If you're a middle manager and your team misses a deadline, own it. If you're an entry-level employee and you make a mistake, own it. This creates a culture of accountability that can dramatically improve performance across the board. So, how can you start implementing extreme ownership in your life and business today? Here are a few actionable steps. 1. Start with self-reflection. The next time something goes wrong, resist the urge to blame. Instead, ask yourself, what could I have done differently to prevent this? 2. Communicate openly about failures. When you make a mistake, admit it openly to your team. This not only sets an example, but also creates an environment where others feel safe to do the same. 3. Focus on solutions, not excuses. Once you've taken ownership of a problem, immediately shift your energy to finding a solution. 4. Encourage extreme ownership in others. When team members come to you with problems, guide them towards taking ownership and finding solutions themselves. Remember, extreme ownership isn't about beating yourself up over every little thing that goes wrong. It's about empowering yourself to affect change and drive success. Now, let's move on to our second key lesson from the book. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. To illustrate this principle, Willink and Babin share a powerful story from their experiences as instructors at Basic Underwater Demolition, SEAL Training, or BUDS. This is the notoriously grueling course that all prospective Navy SEALs must complete. During one phase of training, the students are divided into boat crews of 7 men each. These crews compete against each other in a series of races, carrying their heavy inflatable boats on their heads over long distances and through difficult terrain. In one particular class, there was a boat crew that consistently finished last in every race. They were demoralized, frustrated, and constantly at each other's throats. Meanwhile, another boat crew was dominating every race, working together seamlessly and maintaining high morale despite the grueling conditions. The instructors decided to conduct an experiment. They switched the leaders of the two boats, the best and the worst performing crews. What do you think happened? Within a single race, the results completely reversed. The formerly losing boat crew, under the leadership of the new leader, won the race. The previously winning crew, now under the leadership of the losing boat crew's original leader, fell to last place. This dramatic turnaround demonstrated a crucial truth. The performance of a team is a direct reflection of its leadership. Now, you might be thinking, that's an interesting military anecdote, but how does it apply to my business? Well, let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're the CEO of a company with multiple departments. One department consistently underperforms, missing targets and deadlines. The easy assumption might be that the team members are incompetent or unmotivated. But what if the real problem is leadership? Just like in the SEAL training example, a change in leadership could completely transform the team's performance. A good leader can inspire, motivate, and guide a team to success, even if that team has previously struggled. This principle challenges us to look at team performance through a different lens. Instead of asking, what's wrong with my team, we should be asking, how can I, as a leader, better support and guide my team to success? So, how can you apply this principle in your own leadership journey? Here are some strategies. 1. Take responsibility for your team's performance. If your team is struggling, look first at your own leadership. Are you providing clear direction? Are you addressing obstacles effectively? Are you motivating and inspiring your team? 2. Focus on building and developing your team. A good leader doesn't just give orders. They mentor, coach, and help their team members grow. 3. Lead by example. Demonstrate the work ethic, attitude, and values you want to see in your team. 4. Create a positive team culture. Foster an environment of mutual support, open communication, and shared purpose. 5. Adapt your leadership style. Different team members may respond better to different approaches. Be flexible and willing to adjust your leadership style to what works best for your team. Remember, leadership isn't about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. When you truly embrace this mindset, you'll be amazed at how your team's performance can transform. Now, let's move on to our third and final key lesson from Extreme Ownership. Believe. To understand this principle, we need to transport ourselves back to Iraq, to a moment when Jocko Willink faced a significant leadership challenge. His SEAL team had been tasked with a new mission. They were to conduct operations alongside Iraqi soldiers. At first glance, this seemed like a disaster waiting to happen. The Iraqi soldiers were poorly trained, ill-equipped, and often unmotivated. Many of Willink's SEALs were furious at the idea of putting their lives in the hands of these unreliable allies. Willink himself had doubts, but he realized something crucial. If he didn't believe in the mission, if he showed any hesitation or lack of confidence, his team would never buy in. And if the team didn't believe in the mission, failure was all but guaranteed. So Willink did something that separates great leaders from merely good ones. He stepped back and looked at the bigger strategic picture. He asked himself, why are we being asked to do this? He realized that if the Iraqi military couldn't eventually handle their own security, U.S. forces would be stuck in Iraq indefinitely. By working with Iraqi soldiers now, they were investing in the long-term stability and security of the country. Armed with this understanding, Willink was able to genuinely believe in the mission, and because he believed, he could convincingly communicate the importance of the mission to his team. He didn't sugarcoat the challenges, but he helped his SEALs understand the why behind their orders. The result? Despite the initial resistance, Willink's team embraced the mission. They worked effectively with their Iraqi counterparts, and over time, they saw real progress in the capabilities of the Iraqi soldiers. Now, you might be thinking, that's a compelling war story, but I'm not leading SEALs in combat. How does this apply to my business? Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever had to implement a new strategy or process that your team was resistant to? Perhaps a new technology that disrupted established workflows, or a reorganization that made people uncomfortable. Just like Willink in Iraq, your ability to lead your team through these changes depends largely on your ability to believe in the mission yourself, and then to effectively communicate that belief to your team. Let's say you're a sales manager, and your company is switching to a new CRM system. Your team is comfortable with the old system, and sees the change as unnecessary and disruptive. If you approach this change with hesitation or doubt, your team will pick up on that immediately, and their resistance will only grow. But what if you take the time to truly understand the benefits of the new system? Perhaps it will provide better customer insights, streamline processes, and ultimately help your team close more deals. If you genuinely believe in these benefits and can articulate them clearly to your team, you're much more likely to get buy-in and enthusiastic adoption. So, how can you put this principle into practice? Here are some strategies. 1. Seek to understand the why behind decisions and directives. If you don't understand or agree with something, ask questions up the chain of command until you do. 2. Once you understand and believe in the mission, communicate it clearly and passionately to your team. Help them see the bigger picture and understand how their efforts contribute to larger goals. 3. Be honest about challenges, but focus on solutions and potential positive outcomes. 4. Lead by example. Your actions will speak louder than your words. If you believe in the mission, let it show in your enthusiasm and dedication. 5. Encourage questions and discussion. Allow your team to voice their concerns and address them openly and honestly. Remember, belief is contagious. When you truly believe in your mission, that belief will spread to your team, inspiring them to give their best effort and overcome obstacles. As we wrap up our discussion of extreme ownership, let's recap the main lessons we've covered. 1. Extreme ownership. Take full responsibility for everything in your world. No excuses, no blame. 2. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. The performance of a team is a direct reflection of its leadership. 3. Believe. A leader must believe in the mission to inspire belief in their team. These principles, forged in the crucible of combat, have proven their worth not just on the battlefield, but in boardrooms and businesses across the world. They challenge us to be better leaders, to take responsibility, to inspire our teams, and to believe in our missions. The beauty of these principles is that they're universally applicable. Whether you're leading a SEAL team, a Fortune 500 company, a small business, or even just leading yourself, these concepts can help you achieve greater success and fulfillment. I encourage you to reflect on how you can apply these principles in your own life and career. How can you take more ownership? How can you better lead and inspire your team? How can you cultivate a deeper belief in your mission? Remember, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. It's about owning your mistakes, believing in your mission, and inspiring others to achieve more than they thought possible. If you want to dive deeper into these concepts, I highly recommend picking up a copy of Extreme Ownership. The book is filled with more compelling stories from the battlefield and insightful applications to the business world. Thank you for joining me on CEO's Library, the 1% Bookshelf. Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep leading. Remember, the most successful leaders never stop growing.